welcome to Missing Truths, where we uncover the truth about the death of Heyman Lee. I'm Nandini.
I'm Anjannaa.
I'm Olivia.
And I'm Krutika.
The murder of 18-year-old Heyman Lee has been a case that has stumped the minds of many. Who's lying? Who did it? And amidst all the chaotic messes of suspects, one person has definitely secured a place in the back of my mind as a subject of my paranoia. Don Clendenst. Every time I come back to this case, I suspect him a little bit more. There's just so much about him that confuses me and makes me question everything about his innocence. From the shady clockout records to the mere age gap between him and Hay, I strongly believe Don was most likely the killer of Heyman Lee. Now, of course, I can't definitively tell you who did it, and frankly, I don't think anyone can. This case has baffled many lawyers, detectives, reporters, and true crime fans like myself. Like I said, there is no exact answer to this, but one part that really confused me with Don was the fact that he never called Hay after she went missing. In episode 12 of Serial, Koenig touches on the point briefly, explaining that Dawn believed that she'd maybe run off to California, where her dad was. And you could argue, oh, but Adnan also didn't call her. How's that any different? Well, yeah, Adnan didn't call her. But you have to take into account the fact that they had broken up not too long ago. I mean, he most definitely could have felt awkward about calling her. Dawn, on the other hand, was her current boyfriend, so calling her would have been way less awkward.
Oh, yeah, you definitely have a point there.
Yeah, and I definitely agree. Don is really a shady subject in this case, who wasn't really questioned as much as he really should have been. It's already pretty weird enough that he was dating Hay, a girl who was a minor, while he was already an adult. But something that's even more peculiar than this is how on the day that Hay was killed, according to his shift records at LensCrafters, he works for 40 hours. However, there's no pay records showing he was ever paid for working that many hours. From Crime Junkies, we also learned something else, which is that Dawn's managers at LensCrafters were his mom and her at the time girlfriend. According to the employee rules in LensCrafters, only the owners or the managers of the store can look over and change the work records of an employee, but only for up to 1 week. This means, potentially, if Dawn's work records had been fabricated, it would have had to have been done long before the murder of Hay was revealed publicly. This would mean that he would have to somehow already have known that something had gone wrong that he could have likely been charged for. And how coincidental is it that just a few weeks later, the body of Hay, aka his girlfriend, was found dead? His work shift would definitely be explained if he needed a reason to fake his work records to use as an alibi.
Okay, but what if his records were fake because his mom was just worried he'd get caught up in the case?
Well, yeah, but it's highly unlikely that he'd need to fake a full 40 hours long before Hay's death was even discovered.
Yeah, I agree. That's really questionable. It reminds me of other strange things that relate him to Hay. In episode 2, for example, Sarah Koenig explains that on January 12th, the night before Hay was killed, quote, Adnan called her from his cell phone 3 times. The first two calls at 11:27 p.m. and 12:01 a.m. were only 2 seconds each. The third call at 12:35 a.m. lasted a minute and 24 seconds. In episode 2. I checked the cell record, and yes, this is true. Those calls were made. Sarah goes on to say, according to Dawn's testimony, she'd been in his house that night, which is probably why the first two calls ended so fast. She probably wasn't home yet. I checked the cell record again, and it doesn't show the 11:27 call because technically it wasn't on the same day. The 12:01 call was only 2 seconds. It's definitely a possibility that she could have been in Dawn's house. But why would she be there at 12 o'clock in the morning? This makes Dawn look suspicious to me. I'm sure she doesn't visit everyone she knows at midnight. Only people she's super close with. However, Dawn and Hay hadn't been together for long. Detective Jin Tranium explains that Hay wasn't strangled by a serial killer. It was most likely somebody she knows personally, and we learned this in episode 8. When her car was checked, it was found that her pager was gone, which means that someone likely paged her to meet up with them and then took it after to avoid being caught. This means that the murderer was likely someone she deemed important enough to risk being late to pick her cousin up. And by the looks of it, I'm thinking Dawn is a reasonable contender.
All of you make really good points, which essentially ties into my own evidence. What we learned in Crime Junkies is livor mortis, which is basically when your blood pools up after you die, according to which side is closer to the ground. And on Hayes' body, it was found that her livor mortis was entirely on the front side of her body, which means that if she was killed at the earliest 2:15, then according to Ashley, quote, she had to have been laying flat for 8 to 10 hours for her livor mortis to fully set in. That puts us at 10:30 or 12:30 at night at the earliest before she's buried, unquote. And this does not at all line up with Jay's story, who claims that Hay was buried around 7. However, the day of Hay's disappearance, the police tried to contact her boyfriend, Don. According to Crime Junkies, quote, they can't reach him until 1:30 in the morning. And when they finally get to talk to him, he says that he was working at the time Hay went missing, unquote. LensCrafters isn't open that late, and taking into account that his records could have been fabricated by his mother and her girlfriend, That leaves the question of what could Dawn have possibly been doing that late at night. This period of time also happens to line up with the expected timeline of Hayes' murder based on the livor mortis found on her body. Now, according to her livor mortis, her body would have been predicted to be buried around that late at night, which coincidentally is when Dawn's exact whereabouts are known. This makes it entirely possible that Dawn is actually the murderer, or at least buried her or had some sort of involvement in this case. When you put together all of this evidence, it leads me to our theory that Dawn paged Hay that day. And when they met up around 12:15, he killed her and kept her body in a secluded area for a few hours, and then buried her body around midnight, which is why he couldn't be contacted until 1:30 a.m.
Now, what can we definitively say about all this? Frankly, we can't say anything for sure. I mean, it's been 26 years. But with the substantial evidence we possess against Don, we for sure believe that the police should have looked more into him and his whereabouts that day in order to bring justice to him and Lee.